What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Glow Up Podcast. We are part of the Soundcasting Network here in Seattle, Washington. I am Miss Casey Carter.
And I'm Maurice.
And we want to remind y'all to rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Oh, actually, the podcast app on your Apple phone. Spotify, SoundCloud, all that. And don't forget to leave us a review and let us know what you think about the show. Let us know how we're doing. And please don't forget to hit that follow at the Glow Upcast on all social media platforms. And don't forget to sign up for that Glow Gang Spotlight. We're back. We had a Glow Gang Spotlight this past week, and we just want to keep showing some love to the small local businesses. Well, you don't have to be local, just a independent business. So make sure to sign up for that. That's in our link in bio.
And also make sure to follow us on YouTube as well. Like I mentioned before, if you're not able to listen to us through your headphones, you can obviously listen to us through your soundbar, TV speakers, whatever you guys set up in your house. I know you're cooking. I know you're watching the kids and it gets crazy. Just put us in the background and have us playing. We love to be that distraction outside of those kids running around. And you can learn some things from us. So follow us on YouTube at The Glow Up Podcast.
Play us for the kids. We need these kids to be glowing up our future.
Yeah.
These kids need to be on this entrepreneurship as well. I encourage that. Okay. Shout out to Jasmine and Shantae of The Way with Jazz and Tay podcast. Sometimes it's a little bit of a tongue twister, but man, I've had a great 2 weeks hanging out with them. I think that last week's episode was really great, chatting with them, learning about the podcast game and how they're able to successfully run their podcast. So if you're looking to start a podcast or just are interested in anything to do with podcasts, definitely check them out. They're doing amazing work. This week, we are joined from Jayson Evans. He's all the way in Australia. We're so excited to get to know him. Jayson, I discovered you through an ad on Instagram, and I started following you. So shout out to the algorithm for connecting us.
Every now and then it does something right.
Yes, he's helping music artists create music-centered music. He's a creator of Listen Pages and also I Am Northbound podcast and so much more. You guys are in for a real treat today. So we're so excited to get to know him. But first, let's hop into our weekly wins and lessons. I'll kick things off by sharing a win that I have this week. Well, it happened last week. I stepped into a big role that will help me better serve my community in a major way. We're recording this really early, so I can't share it yet because I don't want to be too early, but follow me on Instagram because I will be announcing it. But all my hard work has paid off and I'll be helping our community make some big things happen. So I'm super excited about that. So it's like a teaser of my
like I want to know now. Like
you already
it?
know.
I mean, I know, but yeah. I want to know.
Well, that's why you guys have to follow me on Instagram. Miss Casey Carter on the gram. Mo, do you have a weekly win or lesson? We're recording really quick between episodes, but
I definitely got a lesson for sure. And it's just stop being lazy. I legit had to look at myself in the mirror and realize that I've been slacking on a few things. And, sometimes you got to identify that stuff for yourself to get motivated to keep going. And that's what I did. So that's a lesson for me was just, stop being lazy. I planned out more stuff to do, creating more things and so forth. And I'm really, really happy with the drive that I've been producing so far. And I told my ass just stop being lazy. So simple as that. That's a lesson for me. And I'm proud, I'm not ashamed of it. It's a simple fact. And so I'm super happy with what's going on. I throw that lazy stuff out the window and I'm producing more things, working on more things. And like I said, sometimes you got to identify with yourself what's wrong with you, fix it and keep going. And that's what I'm doing. So for those that are lazy, get your asses up and get to doing something and let's keep moving and let's try to improve the world, improve yourself first. And let's get to it.
I'll piggyback on that and just say find a healthy balance because sometimes don't beat yourself up. Sometimes your body is telling you, Mo, you need to relax. But also you do need to get up sometimes. Yeah, just finding a healthy balance.
I've been relaxing more than doing more. And I'm like, nah, I need to get up. So I'm getting up.
Well, that's good that you can identify that for yourself. And
Absolutely.
I'm excited for everyone. How about you, Jayson? Do you have any wins or lessons to share with us?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's actually kind of similar to what you guys are just talking about. I found that just because you are doing stuff doesn't mean you're being productive. And I think it's important to take time every now and then to audit the time you spend. And people talk about this as a foundational business principle, but the Pareto principle of that 20% is responsible for 80% of what you get done. So you got to find that 20%, and once you do, scale it. And then you'll find that you either are working longer days but being ultra productive the whole time, or you can actually go the other way and simplify an entire workday down to like 2 hours and be more productive than you would if you were just working all day but not really getting anything done. So it's important to like try to develop the muscle to see yourself from that outside perspective, so you can get away from your problems and, you know, or the micro business problems, that is, and see the bigger picture and ask yourself, like, is what I'm doing actually productive? Because if it's not, why are you wearing yourself out? So that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, is trying to simplify down. And I managed to do that. Now I'm, you know, getting way more done again. I feel like I've got that fire again for working, rather than feeling like I'm burning myself out, you know?
Oh my gosh, we are in for a treat on this episode.
Seriously.
I'm so excited. First of all, if you were watching the live stream, did you just see that scroll at the bottom? That was pretty cool.
Bars.
Production. Okay, shout out to Keith. We out here. All right, let's hop into our vibe check. Jayson, is there anything that you want to share that you're currently vibing with right now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm such a like sucker for 90s nostalgia. So like of late, I've just been so into watching like old cartoons from the 90s. I think it's a good way to like kind of switch off, but I don't know, in a weird way, remind me of who I used to be as a kid. Because it's like, I don't know, it's weird. You watch these old shows and your brain almost for sometimes thinks like it reminds me of, oh, this show used to be on when like mom was cooking dinner at home and I could smell dinner. And it's like, I don't know, it's way more than just a show, but at the moment it has to be Hey Arnold. It's the best one out there, I reckon. It's just so good to switch off after a long day. Just put some Hey Arnold on, or Fresh Prince, but I always get a Fresh Prince. So.
Fresh Prince in this house has been on non-stop.
Yeah,
it's
been my whole life.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay, I like that. Mo, what are you vibing with?
I mean, I'm gonna relate to that as well. I've been watching a lot of old television shows also. Like I mentioned before, I watched Ozark, but I've actually been watching the Wayans Brothers and the Jamie Foxx show, realizing how funny them two shows are. So I've been going back to that, and just realizing how funny Jamie Foxx is still today and even back then. I was just like, okay, this show's amazing, and the Wayans Brothers are just the Wayans Brothers. R.I.P. to Pops, but you know, he killed that show too. So yeah, I've been watching those for sure.
I love when we get to watch things as adults, because you understand things a little differently. I'm sure a lot of the jokes on the Wayans Brothers and Jamie Foxx are like, whoa, that's way more funny. I didn't know what that meant when I was 12.
And you wonder, you now know why your parents are so strict about certain shows that you didn't understand when you were younger.
And I can't believe we were watching those shows still. Sometimes I'm like,
right,
what was going on? Nobody was policing me at this time. I needed not to be watching this, but all of those shows I vibe with, definitely. This week, what I'm vibing with is, Mo, I sent this to you. I sent this podcast to a lot of my friends this morning, and it is a podcast I always shout out, Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast. He had on Bob Proctor on the show, and the episode is titled How to Manifest Your Dream Life and the Secret to Breaking Free from Society's Expectations. What a mind-blowing episode. It was raw. It was really great. And I encourage everyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or just trying to find your purpose in life, whatever, everyone should listen to this episode. It's really great. Again, it is the Jay Shetty Podcast with Bob Proctor. Make sure to check that out. It's really eye-opening, and I feel like I'm going to be listening to that weekly, and you'll know why when you listen to the episode. Repeating and continuously learning is going to be the key to getting to places, and I think there's so many little lessons in that episode, so make sure to check that out. All right, we are going to get to know Jayson right after this quick break. All right, you guys, we are back and we are chatting with Jayson John Evans. We're so excited. Like I said, I started following Jayson on Instagram. I saw an ad, and I got to say, those are my favorite connections, when you just are scrolling on the gram, you don't know these people at all, and you just reach out, and Jayson replied, and again, we're so excited to get to know him. So let's kick things off. Tell us about yourself, Jayson. Who were you growing up, and what did you see yourself being when you were growing up?
Oh man, what a question. I started like when I was younger, I just was super academic focused and all I wanted to do was like be a doctor, like when I was younger. And then I've always been raised in like a really musical family. So my cousins were musicians, my grandfather was a musician and kind of got us all into it. And my dad played guitar. And then when I was about 8, the discussion came up, do you want to play an instrument? And I was like, yeah, I'll play guitar like my dad. So I started learning guitar. And that led to me becoming a songwriter and then, just loving being in a band. But as soon as I started focusing on music, the dreams of being a doctor kind of went, you know what I mean? I've always been naturally like, it wasn't like music completely like the cliche distracted me from everything else. It's just the fact that it's what I really wanted to do. So from that, I was in a band. And then from that, I started recording like my songs and then recorded other people's songs and opened a recording studio. Then I taught songwriting for years. Like I've never actually had a job. Like I've only ever worked for myself in the music industry. But over the time of working in the studio, I would help a lot of people create their music, but have no idea how people could actually sell it. People would constantly ask me, like, after I'd give them their masters back, like, what now? Like, where do I go now? And I'd always be like, I really don't know. Like, the music industry is really tricky. But coincidentally, I released an album of my own that I put out there, but I was going through a pretty like severe mental health journey at the time. And I wrote the album as kind of like a cathartic processing exercise to try to like get it all out there. And then I just thought to myself, you know what? I was like at rock bottom and I was in a really dark place and I had no care anymore for anything. So I was like, I don't care what people think of me. So I'm going to release this album and say alongside it, this album like is about my journey through mental health. And I even had people come to me at the time, because this is like 10 years ago nearly. And they were like, are you sure you want to do that? Because mental health wasn't as openly discussed. And they were like, this could reflect as a weakness. So I was like, you know what? No, because if it helps someone, then it's all worth it, right? And it means that I haven't gone through all this for no reason, So I was like, it might be worth it. So if I could help just one person. So I brought the album out, and because I was so focused on this is as an album to help people with mental health issues and not just here's a new album, go listen to it like everyone else is doing. A lot of media picked up on it and started running news articles of like, here's a guy stepping out about mental health. And I was like, why is this? I was in a band before that for 8 years and we found it hard to get into media. So why all of a sudden have I got media calling me? Like and I was trying to figure out what it was. And the album came out, and in the first week of release, we got more downloads on that than my entire than I would ever get on my previous band. Like, and we were signed and stuff. Like, it was crazy how much I seemed to just hit some kind of code or like cheat code for the industry. I was like, why is this? And the album came out, and like a whole bunch of people were messaging me saying it helped them with their mental health, which is great. But 2 people messaged me on 2 separate occasions, and they're unrelated. They had no idea that each other sent the message. And I never came out publicly and said that people had. So no one knew about this. But 2 separate people messaged me saying that they were planning on taking their own life that night, but listened to my album and it changed their mind. And I was like, oh, I'm onto something pretty big here. So From that, I started to try to research that, going, I don't want to tell people how I did it because I didn't nail it. I'm not like a famous music artist. The band broke up like a little bit after because of more mental health issues. But I wanted to find out what that was, because I started to realize that instead of chasing fame and all that kind of stuff that a lot of people like, shiny objects that people are forever chasing and vanity metrics and trying to make their life look good, if you just be your real authentic self, you realize that everyone out there is really just seeking that one thing, which is authentic human connection. If you provide that, and that's where you make a real difference. And, it just happens to be, that's where real connection is built. So I started studying the world's biggest music artists and trying to find what they were doing using those techniques. And I realized all of them are doing it, whether they're aware of it or not, but I'm sure they are. But a lot of people who are, up and coming music artists that have really important messages to tell, aren't aware of these techniques, and they're forever just spamming DMs with like, listen to my latest single, and just tired old tactics that do not work. So I was like, you know what? As much as imposter syndrome was like, who am I to tell people this kind of stuff? I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So someone was like, you should start a podcast because I can talk forever. So it's like, cool. So I did a podcast. People kept asking the same questions. So I was like, yeah, I'll create a PDF so I can give it to them for free with the frequently asked questions of the, for the research I've done, what I've found. And then that turned into a 30-page PDF that turned into a 60-page PDF. It's turned into like a 260-page book that I released, called The 40 Songwriter, How to Dominate the New Music Industry. That's likely what you found me on the ad for. And that book was out in technically came out in the later half of 2019, but the revised version came out in 2020. And I went from being a guy that was in my garage writing this book to, I think we sold like 25,000 copies in 6 months and stuff like that. And these music artists that every day I was receiving countless A4 page letters from people being like, hey, the 40s songwriter, like, this is it, it's authentic selling. And that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm here now, is to show people how to not try to push their music through anything selfishly, but try to create music-centered movements that have open up a wide array of marketing opportunities outside of just pushing your music alone. So you can start pushing through the message, like telling music artists, why don't you create a podcast that is on brand with the same themes that you push through your music? Because then you can find new audience streams, and people start going, oh my goodness, this creative vision is way bigger than I thought. And that's ultimately what I'm here for, is to show people how to actually write and create content to change people rather than just to benefit themselves.
Oh,
so
incredible.
I mean, ain't that like beautiful though? So like you had to go through something in order to help others, and it built something big for you. So like you mentioned, you wrote the book, the 40 songwriter, How to Dominate the Music Industry. When you were with your band and when you made your album, I mean, what was the difference within the music industry at this time to now, to making you want to help others to reach those certain audiences instead of talking about the normal stuff like money, all that stuff? And what kind of helped you build what you're currently building now?
I think the biggest change has been, if this is what you're asking, is essentially social media was nowhere near as big when I did that album. So realistically, like to show the age of it, it was only 10 years ago. But back then, the way that people got access to the album was by going to a website and downloading it to their computer. Like, it wasn't even on, people say, oh, can I listen to it on Spotify? It's like, it's not on Spotify. Like, we released that before Spotify. Like, that's, I mean, it makes me feel really old, but still. But it's just been since then, like, I gave it away for free too. I didn't charge for it because I wanted to get it out there. And a bunch of people were like, man, there were like 10,000 downloads in the first week of this album. If you charged for that, you would have made so much money. And it's like, no, I wouldn't have, because by lowering the commitment threshold required to get access to my content, more people were going to be open to do it. Like, those 10,000 people wouldn't have, if they wouldn't have spent money to buy the same album. Like, a lot of people came in because they were just slightly curious. And then I started to kind of unearth the fact that there are 4 distinct stages to fandom, and people act differently in each one. And that's also in my book as well. I happily talk about it. I just don't want to ramble on about it, but essentially it's getting people to understand, to cater their messaging to these different things, audience segments, and they can get better results that way. But I said back in 2012 that releasing music for free was going to be the way forward. And a bunch of my friends were like, no way, man, like, album sales are it. That's how we make money. And I'm like, if you release it for free, you capture your audience and you can sell them anything. I didn't know at the time what else that was. It took me years to figure that out. But now it totally makes sense. And people were like still telling me that I was wrong. And then you look at like someone like Chance the Rapper, like, he released all his music for free and he's won like several Grammys in the process, and he's a world-renowned person. And everyone is just saying now is like, you have to like release everything you can for free to provide value and get people in, and then charge later. And that's exactly where the world's going, for sure.
I love that you are saying that, putting information out there, putting content out there for free is how you gain notoriety or how you gain fandom or whatever it is. In the music industry, I feel like it's very gatekeepy. I don't know if that's the same way where you are, but over here, a lot of people like to gain access to information, opportunities, and hold those for themselves. I saw that as a big problem in what I was doing as a promoter and a media personality. And I would feel like, oh my gosh, all these people are asking me for things. Like, this is so annoying. And then I finally was like, why am I annoyed by this? Because these people don't know, and they just don't know. So I decided to flip my mindset and do just similar to you, help people, provide information, provide the content I know, because I know I needed that when I was on the come up. So why is it important for you to provide this information for free? And then what motivates you to keep doing this? Because there can be times where you're like, oh my God, why don't they just get it? But it's just like an endless circle of feeding information. So how do you keep going?
I think I'm a notorious like undercharger. So I don't know if I'm on like the good side of it as saying do what
Same.
I do, because I'm someone who I've worked for free for years all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
get told by people all the time I should charge for what I do, but I don't charge enough. I think I honestly think that when I went through the mental health journey, the first one that made me write my album, that it changed my whole perspective on everything. And I just essentially got to the point of like, if you're not doing stuff to help other people, what's the point? Like, why look out for yourself? And now I've developed an almost like irrational distaste for selfishness when I see it, and ego and that kind of thing. Because it just, in the first few chapters of my book, I kind of go really hard on like ego, because I know that a lot of music artists have that, and I kind of want to squash it before they continue reading on. But essentially, it's like, yeah, I really just want to help people. And I mean that genuinely. There's a lot of people that you would consider probably quote unquote competitors of mine that are in the music industry space, because I'm trying to help music artists and they are too. But a lot of these other places, they're trying to sell Spotify playlist hacks and like how to get shortcuts to success and join my music accelerator program, and to break into the music industry. And a lot of those people don't like me. Like, I know that, and I know that I'm a threat to them. And the reason is because like I've even released content out there saying, don't buy into Spotify playlist hacks, because all they're going to do is you're paying each month for traffic to come in and drive your vanity metrics up, but it's just vanity metrics. You're not going to be happy with that. And it's the same thing as years ago, like people used to talk about Facebook ads because you could get 10,000 plays on your new music video. But if no one's staying around to follow you long term and have built enough of a connection to like not just follow you online, but follow you around where you go physically, and also just wherever you do anything ever, anywhere. Like if they're not a real fan, then what's the point? And that's the same thing. Spotify playlists, like these new things, it's the same thing that's been repeated for years, but maybe this industry hasn't been around long enough, or some of them haven't seen that before to notice the pattern. But even people who have don't notice the pattern. But I come out and say, don't do it, because you need authentic growth. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Stop trying to get to the finish line quickly. Build your audience each day, because wouldn't you rather play in front of, at a show, 100 people who are like, you've genuinely changed my life, rather than a stadium full of 10,000 who don't care about you and will forget about you next week? There are some people, when I ask them that, they're like, nah, to be honest, like I think I would rather just play in front of a lot of people because it'd look good on Instagram. And I'm like, well, then you're not someone I can help. Like that's a different thing. But if you're genuinely out there, like, and most people say, I want to help people like with my art. That's why people create music. It's to bring something into the world that, it builds that real authentic human connection. That's what everyone's looking for. So if you're someone like that, what I do is for you. But a lot of these competitors of mine are trying to capitalize on music artists and make money on them. So they charge like hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month to like have these like course programs and stuff. And the music industry is so fickle. It's like, how do you even know if that's going to work? But yeah, it's funny because sometimes I've released content and then I'm on all their lists, their email lists as well, just to see what the industry's doing.
Yep.
And I've released something out, and all of a sudden I get an email in my inbox being like, you might have heard people talk about the fact that Spotify playlists aren't good at the moment. Let us defend ourselves, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, I really think that I've even had competitors send their workers out to like sabotage my posts and stuff to try to shut me down because what I'm saying is just so different to what they're saying, but is also pulling people away from the fame metric that everyone has that wool over their eyes and stuff. So I'm not trying to be a disruptor, but I think that when you say something that is upsetting the industry, you might be saying something worth listening to, you know what I mean? And but it's what, as I said, it's nothing that I've just kind of put the puzzle together, but it's what everyone's doing these days that are really staying around and making a difference.
I want to just scale back just a little bit, because what you said is so important. A lot of people are paying for views and streams and plays on Spotify playlists. And I feel like a lot of the industry, I used to work in radio, and it is all about the numbers, quote unquote. But I always say that, I mean, people are going to read through it. If you come in quick because of like being fake and paying for all this stuff, you're going to go just as quick versus going on this marathon, putting in the work, building your authentic fan base. And the longer it takes to get there, I feel like the stay is going to be a lot longer. So I'm glad that you said that. Now, I want to bring up the art of storytelling because it's lost in everything. You talk about this a lot in your content. I don't know if this is the same for artists where you are, but American artists, it seems like we like to, not we, but they like to copy what they're seeing, and they're not telling their authentic story. So why as artists do you think most are trying to tell someone else's story instead of their own? Which I think when you can't attract your tribe when you ain't telling what's going on with you. I think that like what you said is so important. You shared something that was real to you and you attracted all of these people. I always push the message like you're going to attract fakeness if you're being fake.
Yeah. You nailed it. You can't attract your tribe if you're not telling your authentic story. That's 100% it. That may as well be one of my posts. But it's exactly right. But I think the reason people default to telling other people's stories, whether that be literally or figuratively, is because one, it's easier to hide behind something else. If someone's already done it, then they've already weathered the storm. And if they haven't been, like, everyone thinks that by telling their story that everyone's going to hate them or something. It's dumb, and it never happens. That it's like, it's silly to think that, but I guess that hesitance is why a lot of people aren't doing it. Like, you have to kind of have that confidence to take that step to see the results. But I think it's easier to follow what someone else is doing. But secondly, I think it's also people trying to chase shortcuts because they see success and try to emulate it. And rather than seeing what they did, which was tell their story, so therefore tell your story, they told that specific thing, so I'm going to zoom in a bit further and just follow that individually. And I feel like that is the problem, is a lot of people get way too focused on shortcuts. Like, for example, like TikTok, for example, like this is a great platform at the moment. It was amazing about 6 months ago, but still it's pretty good now still. But the biggest thing about TikTok that people aren't seeing is the fact that it's an entire network built on authenticity. Like, you got things like Instagram where people are photoshopping their entire life to make it look better than it is. But TikTok, at least when you start using it, it starts tailoring to what you want to see. The content you usually see is very authentic. It's people just in their houses. It's very much like in their pajamas. Like, they don't care about getting dressed up. They just create funny content. And that type of authenticity is what's keeping people on the app. Whether people are aware of it or not, it's such an authentic platform. And the more that people open up on that platform, the more they're usually rewarded. It's a very safe space of an app. People are very supportive on there. Yet a lot of people, because when they first open it, they see all the viral videos of everyone being fake and dumb and silly. And they go, oh, TikTok's a dumb platform. I'm not going to try to promote myself on it because it's fake. But it's like, no, it's amazing. But on that platform, a lot of people who come on to try to find a strategy rather than playing the long game and dealing with somebody as not picking up and somebody as picking up, because it's kind of like a viral lottery, that platform. It's built on a really strange system, but it goes to show you don't need a huge following to blow up. You can come on for your first video and go viral. And that's why it's exciting. But instead of being authentic and trying to create a message that's going to resonate with a specific group of people that they can actually identify with, rather than trying to create something fake, like telling their real story, they or elements surrounding it or things branching out from it, they look to a trend and go, if I use that song and then copy that type of post, then I'll find that success too. And it's like, would you want to though? Because then you're forever like spinning plates that aren't yours. Like, you're trying to just, you'll get stuck in this fake lifestyle with an audience full of people that aren't there to really see who you are. And I've seen plenty of people fall down that trap. Another example is people who start posting memes on their personal account that are unrelated to their movement. And they all of a sudden turn into like a meme profile. And all they do is end up like, oh, I've got 200,000 followers. But every time they post their music, it gets no interaction. But then they post a meme and it gets shared a whole bunch and like, why is no one caring? It's like, because these aren't your highly targeted listeners. You just have built a community of meme lovers. So if you were to do like maybe a comedy circuit that's along that type of humor, they might give you more of a chance, but still nowhere near as much as they would if you just released a meme. So you have to make sure that everything you do aligns. And it's a really simple thing, but a lot of people aren't doing it.
Is that what's hurting the industry though? The fakeness? Is that what's really hurting it?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I feel like there are so many outliers in the music industry that anything I say, there's always going to be a counter argument of like, yeah, but what about this artist? They're an anomaly. It's like, yeah, well, they're an anomaly. That's the thing, right? And also they say it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. Like, all these people that look like they blew up overnight have been working on what they've been doing for a long time. They just found some type of opportunity that they were able to snowball into what they become. But if you look at the world's biggest music artists, a lot of them are leveraging the realness of their personality on social media. And this is one of the things that I say to music artists.
Look at Cardi B.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but like Cardi B is like a perfect example of somebody.
Great example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
for real.
example.
And I say to people all the time, you go to your favorite music artist profiles. Why? They're like, oh, because I really like seeing what they're creating. It's like, what are they creating? Are they forever just spamming, here's my new single, here's my new single, here's my new single with the album artwork or a clip? Or are they saying, here's me backstage, behind the scenes of filming the video clip for my new single, which gives an insight into them as a person, but it's still promoting their music. Like, think that way. And also at the moment, stories are more consumed than feed posts, as far as I'm aware. Like it's swaps back and forth, but at the moment, I'm pretty sure that's true. And people are going on to Instagram to just watch reality TV through stories, and stories are where people are their most authentic. It's the most low quality, not as in like that it's bad, but just not high produced. Usually it's just front facing camera or video, or here's what I'm eating for lunch or whatever. But that's where you get the biggest insight into people. And to get into the behavioral science of it all for a second, is that the whole reason that a user will open an app in the first place is due to a negative behavioral trigger, whether that be slightly like, I'm just a bit bored, they'll open their app, or it might be because they're like a more severe one, like FOMO or something, like I don't want to miss out. Has anyone messaged me? I feel lonely. I feel depressed. I want to open my app to build human connection. But regardless, they're coming in for that human connection. So if you're providing content that's like advertising, listen to my music with no opportunity for connection, it's not what they're looking for. So they'll non-consciously scroll past that without even being aware that they've done it. There's studies that show that. So instead, you have to create content that's giving them what they're looking for, and that's real human connection. And then once you've got them in and interested, I call that providing access points to your listen path. Once you get them into your listen path, the idea is then to transition them toward becoming a true fan. And you do that by providing more content like that, then providing your music as the soundtrack to that journey forward, if that makes sense. Not just, here's my latest song. Because if you do that, people are going to answer you with the same question that everyone else is, why should I care about you? And you can say, oh, it's great, check the song out, you're going to love it. But even if it is the best song, it might sound amazing, but all you're going to be is like a temporary one-hit wonder that people are going to forget about in maybe a couple of months' time, because they've got no substance there to stay on long-term. But however, if you create the movement, you can embed like psychological triggers so that when they're out and about and someone else says a specific word or term that you're used to associating with someone else, you're like, oh, that reminds me of that artist, I got to check them out. And people will start chasing you. That's just one of a million ways you can get people on board long-term, you know?
That's so funny. That's about like 50 to 80% of the music industry today, and even content creators today. It's crazy.
And I love that you said like soundtrack to people's lives, because I think that's like, when I interview people, that's a very important question. Like, what are the songs on your soundtrack to your life? And I think if you aim, like, well, if you don't purposely aim, but if you create that kind of music that resonates with people, you'll be unforgettable. Like, yes, you know, so I love that. Now, you talked a little bit about other, like some of your quote unquote competitors. And I'm very similar with like, I undercharge. I love to just help people. I know things. I don't want to, you know, like I know how it feels. I love a deal. I said that before. But I want to ask you, like, when can an artist identify like where should they invest? Like if they see a program or they see a course or they see a book, like how can they help identify like this is a good investment versus like, I think I'm about to get scammed? Because I signed up for a bunch of emails before too, and I would get like, pay $300 and get your music and be a, you know, signed to a sub label of this, and you know, pay to get on Spotify, play, like all of these things. Like how can you help an artist identify what's a scam and what's a good investment for themselves?
That's a really good question, because I think I try to create content that helps people with that. But to think about how someone could do that, I don't want my answer to be, oh, just follow me and I'll show you. Like, I don't want it to be that. I'm trying to think the best way to answer that. I think genuinely, generally speaking, if someone has contacted you, I'd be questioning the offer. Like if you see it in your feed, like, I'll pay this money. Like people do this all the time. I'll make it even easier. If it sounds like a shortcut, don't do it. Like for real. Like I love that. If it sounds like something that's going to bring results quickly, and a lot of these ads will promise that because that's what they know people want to hear, it's probably not going to do what you want. Think of it this way. A lot of people go, I work with a few artists one-on-one, and sometimes I get messages like, oh, I saw this offer where it was like, I don't know, it might be like $40 and you get an email list of all the radio stations in America and you can send your stuff out. I'm like, they were around when I was 18, like that type of thing. But you got to remember, if those lists are public, you know, people are going to straight up be like you've got so many competitors that are all sending to those stations as well. Like there's no real reason for you to have to do that. So I think you need to like self-assess yourself if that makes sense, to audit what you're doing, to be like, where are my gaps? Like, where are the problems? Why can't I grow? Like, if rather than just going, oh, I can't get my music heard, it's like, why? Well, if I'm asking people, they're not listening. Okay, great. Well, have you given them that reason to listen yet? Well, my music just sounds good. It's like, well, that's not enough. Like, you've got to get, what's the message behind the song? And then it's Instagram. So, for example, why don't you put out a piece of content where you talk about the meaning behind the song and say, I wrote this song when I was in a really dark place. It's about this. And then target it at people that are like that. Go into Facebook groups of people that are talking about similar topics and leave your 2 cents in there about certain topics. And then just casually mention, not hard promote, but be like, yeah, I actually wrote a song on my second album about that. And it's like my soundtrack whenever I feel sad. You're going to have people reach out to you and be like, hey, where can I check that out? I go through that. I want to hear this song to see if it helps me. When you start considering your music as medicine to a headache, once you identify the headache, that is, you can know what your medicine is, then when people have those headaches, where to find them and what to provide. And that's the biggest mind shift they're trying to get to people, is like, your music has to be a solution for something, because otherwise it's just like pleasant noise, usually. Like, for example, people say all the time, oh, it's so hard to get heard because all the big artists dominate the music industry. It's like, okay, think about the user behavior of someone that puts on music. Like, why do they put music on? Well, it's because they want music on at that time. Okay, why do they want music on? Well, that's where you have to answer that question. Are they heartbroken because they just broke up with someone, they want something on repeat while they cry their eyes out? Then they might just go to Spotify and go, play me something sad. But if you've already communicated to them saying, yeah, I wrote this song about my recent breakup, and I hope it helps you through that too, they'll be like, there was someone that talked about this, and you might be on their mind. They might give you a shot, and you're now stolen that listener away from a big artist. Same thing as people who have music that they might say, oh, I've got no, because I talk about mental health and that type of thing. And I try to help people find real, it's like serious, but not heavy, but just weighty messages that can move people. They're the ones that do the best. But some people say, you know what? No, I'm an electronic artist. I'm a DJ. I just write music to help people dance. There's no other purpose to it other than that. And it's funny because I've worked with a ton of DJs and done the same thing. We found out, what do their audience want? Well, usually it's escapism. They work a day job and they're bored, so they want to go to a nightclub that's so loud and the opposite of their work environment to get drunk and forget about their problems. So we advertised one DJ, we pivoted his message to essentially emphasize escapism, and all of his retention went up and his shows were bigger and stuff because people know that he hasn't only identified their headache, he's communicated to people, I know what you're going through. I know your headache and I provided for it. And that's like what cult leaders do to unethically lead people to places they don't want to be. But human connection is powerful if you show people you know what they're going through. Same thing as if you know that your music's going to pump people up, then where do people need to feel pumped up? Well, when they go for a morning run, for example. So why not advertise to a group of runners in a running group on Facebook? So the internet has created these incredibly powerful sects and segments of people's interests. So you can advertise to them and say, you know what, I've created the ultimate running playlist on Spotify, check it out. And they've got nothing to lose, but you put your song in there and a couple of others sprinkled through and a couple of popular ones. And now not only have you got them listening to your song first when they go for a run in the morning, and they associate it with the activity, which means that when they get up, they want to listen to your music and it's like a non-conscious connection. They start to associate you with social proof of these big artists. So they listen to you, then someone big, then someone you, then someone big. And suddenly the lines get blurred of is this a big artist? I should take them as serious as I do these big artists. That's the way you can make it work for you. But all of that comes from identifying that headache.
Ooh,
Dude,
man, incredible.
These artists really need to listen to you.
What a blessing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
My goodness, man. So, I mean, with that being said, what are 3 tips for an artist to find their voice? What are 3 tips that you could provide?
Okay, cool. So I talk about breaking your whole life down into 2 sections, which is your story and your motivation. And I don't mean motivation as in I feel motivated, whatever. It's your motivation to create content. What change are you trying to bring to the world? But your story is everything up until today. A lot of people get confused and think that once they create their story, that it's only ever up until the day they created it. But tomorrow, your story will be a day longer and your motivation will be a day shorter as we go through our life, right? But still, if you don't have your story, and you just talk about the motivation, people will like the idea of the future that you're trying to take them to if you can resonate, but your story adds that credibility for them to actually want to follow you in the first place. So one without the other is pointless. I say this all the time. One of the most cliche things is on any reality program with music, which I don't really recommend artists go on, but they've shown us, because they've done all the market research for us, that no one really cares about a new performer unless they have that little 3-minute backstory of like, this is where I come from, this is why this opportunity is so important to me. But it helps you build a really important connection with that artist. So now you care about them. And the same thing is see it in sports. You see it in TV shows, do it to introduce new characters. They'll give them a backstory, and now all of a sudden you really care about them. Like the TV show Lost was built on that, but that's why it was so big, right? Because you had huge connection with the characters. And it's the same thing. Like, why aren't you telling your story? And what have you been through that led you up into this point? But usually what I say to people, in order to find their story, you need to find your motivation first, which is what change are you trying to bring to the world through your music? And this usually can be found through your lyrics. So what I like to do is I'll give people like a little exercise to do if you want, that I tell people to do. So I say, get your 10 most recent songs that you think best represent who you currently now are as an artist, and then go through and write the lyrics out to every single song, but remove out all the repeated bits, remove out all the parts that to make it look like a song. If there are any ad libs, remove that. Just make it look like it was a letter written to someone else. Change all the spacing. Don't repeat the chorus. Just write it like a text message, like just like that. Then read it to yourself out loud without putting any inflections in or melody or anything that makes it read like a song. Read it like you're reading a letter to someone. And then at the end, ask yourself, fill in this statement. I wrote this song for blank who are struggling with blank. So I wrote this song for young adolescents who are struggling with letting go of their past relationship, right? Or whatever. That might be your statement. Now you know that's your individual marketing. If you're going, how do I promote my new single? Well, you now know who you're speaking to with that single. So there's the message and the marketing angle, so for that specific song. But do that for all 10, then start to try to summarize the similar ones. If you have ever like 2 that are the same, remove one, like summarize it down. And eventually you get to a point in which you have, I write my music for this type of people who are struggling with this. And you'll find that there has been a common theme to your music this entire time. Everyone like that I've done this exercise for finds it, because your creative vision is almost like a non-conscious representation of like your inner thoughts. So it's always there. And then the better part is that you realize that's your whole life has led you up to the point to write this content. You've been shaped in the way you've been shaped to write the music you make. So then you go backwards and go, what have I been through that has led me to this point to want to do what I'm doing now? And if you rewind this episode, I did the exact same thing. My motivation is to help music artists create music-centered movements so they can get their messaging out there. And when I told my story, I told only the important events that led up to that exact point to give reason and understanding behind why I do what I do. And that's it. I found my story. I found my motivation. And you just need to do the exact same thing.
That's awesome.
Have you read this book?
No, but I've seen it and it's on my to-read list.
Okay, because the people I work for are all about story branding, and what you have done is you have done a masterful job at telling this story. And this episode is going to be so great to listen to. I think that. Not just for artists, but just, I mean, for a creative like myself, like you've got me really hungry and excited and wanting to be more vulnerable than I already am.
It's the same thing. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you create music. It's just for music artists, music is their weapon of choice, but you could be a stand-up comedian and do the same thing. Like it's just whatever your art is, that's just the weapon of choice. But the same foundational principle is the same regardless.
Jayson, you're a gem. You are a gem to this industry. We're so fortunate that we were able to have this conversation with you. I feel like we could keep going and going, but I want to push people to listen to your podcast, to join your circle, to follow you, and then also to get that book that you have going on. So please let people know where they can find you, follow you, and get your book.
For sure. Okay, cool. So if you want to get my book, you can at the4dsongwriter.com. So that's still going, I'm pretty sure. That's up to date. I'm just trying to remember. I haven't actually said that URL in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's the4dsongwriter.com. If you have any questions about your music career that you want me to help you with, I'm happy to help you. Just shoot me a message to my socials are on the screen, right? Just on Instagram. I do that all the time. Might take me a couple of days to get back to you, but I love helping people. So hit me up with your problems and I'll help you with an answer. But yeah, if you want to check out my podcast, I ramble all the time. You can get access to all the episodes at iamnorthbound.com. iamnorthbound.com. Might have said that a bit fast. It's on podcast platforms as well, but I create a ton of bonus content like every single week that dives into, some people love it. Some people are more wanting just music marketing strategies, but some people want the psychology behind it and copywriting and marketing and like more advanced stuff. I create everything, even like social media content, how to take advantage of the current algorithm changes. And that's all at iamnorthbound.com. But if you have a podcast app, you can just listen to the main show on any podcast app. Yeah.
My goodness. Thank you so much, Jayson. It was such a pleasure. You guys.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I hope you guys all took notes because I'm going to have to re-listen to this one. Well, you
I'm
guys.
gonna listen to this multiple times.
Y'all don't forget to sign up for our Glow Gang Spotlight. That is in our link in bio. We like to highlight small businesses. So sign up for that.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube as well at the Glow Up Podcast.
Yes. Follow us at the Globecast on all social media platforms. Rate, review, and subscribe to us on the podcast app, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts. And yes, it's been a pleasure, Jayson. And we'll see you guys next week. No, we won't. Will we?
No,
we
couple
will.
weeks.
No, we
couple
will.
Weeks.
We'll be back next week and then the week after. We will.
Okay.
We won't. Okay. All right. Bye, you guys.